Now let us see what we are going to study in this lesson. Now in this lesson we will be studying about some key terms which are related to sense organs. We will study about eye, the main structure of the eye, the structure of eyeball, and the several accessory structures of eye. Now first let us discuss about some key terms related to sense organs. Now first important terms when we are coming to this sense organ, we should know about what is a stimulus. Now long back we have already studied what is a stimulus. Just let us revise. What is it? It is a physical event that affects an organism and activates its receptors to bring about a change in its activity. Now either it is a mechanical stimuli, that is pressure, or touch. It is a chemical stimuli, that is taste or smell, or thermal stimuli, that is heat and cold. Now this is all about stimulus. Now what is the sensation? Now sensation is a state of awareness of stimulus. Now whether you are feeling this stimuli, either it is taste or smell or heat or cold. So any of this stimuli, if it is felt by our body, it is called a sensation. Suppose we are feeling a sense of heat. So it is a stimulus, thermal stimulus, or cold. It is also a thermal stimulus. So it is a sensation that we are feeling cold or we are feeling hot. So let us see what are other things, important terms we should know while studying about this sense organs. Now here first we should know about the receptors. So what are receptors? Receptors are the sensory cells that receive stimulus from the environment. Now there are certain cells in our body. These are few sensory cells which receive stimulus from the environment. Now next comes the photoreceptors, which only respond to light, like rods and cone cells of the eye. We will study it in this lesson. Next comes the chemoreceptors, which respond to chemicals such as taste buds. When we are eating anything, whether it is bitter, sour, sweet or salty, these chemicals we can taste or feel or sense through our taste buds. So that is responding to chemicals. So those receptors are called chemoreceptors. Next comes the thermoreceptors. So what is it? The thermoreceptors respond to the change in temperature. So the skin is a thermoreceptor. Whether it is too hot outside or it is too cold outside, the skin is going to feel the change of temperature or the thermal status of the environment. Next comes the mechanoreceptor, which respond to touch. There are several nerve fibers around our hair. So this is an example. When we touch near about hair, we will be feeling the touch of the fingers. So these are mechanoreceptors. Next comes the exteroreceptors. So the exteroreceptors are specialized to detect the sensory information from the external environment. So anything from the external environment, when we are receiving those informations to detect the sensory information, these are called exteroreceptors. Okay, so this is all about receptors and what is sensation and what is stimuli. Now we will proceed with the structure of the accessory structures of the eye. Now in this slide we will discuss about the accessory structures of the eye. Now here see the diagram of this eye. So here you can see the eyebrows, the eyelids, and please do follow my red pointer over here, and the eyelashes. And here tear glands are there which we can't see actually. But here inside under the eyelids and all there are tear glands. So these are all accessory structures of the eye. Now eyebrows protect the eyeball from foreign materials, objects, or if we are sweating profusely, the sweat should not roll down from our forehead and come inside our eye. So it is protecting our eyes from the perspiration also. And direct sunlight is also being protected by these eyebrows as well as this eyelids. Now these eyelids are these folds of skin. We keep on just closing and opening our eyelids. We all know that eyelids are protecting us from excessive light. They are protecting us from foreign particles. They do always cover the eye when we are sleeping. When there is excessive light or excessive dust, it protects us from all those things. Now, when we close our eyelids, what happens? The tears inside our eye, which is acting as a lubricating secretion, it is all spread inside our eye, over the eyeballs. And we all know that upper eyelid is more movable than the lower one. Now here we can see the lacrimal canaliculi, the lacrimal sac and the lacrimal duct, as well as the lacrimal gland. So this is all related to the tear glands. So that we will all study in details in the next a few slides. So let us now proceed to the next slide. Now in this slide we will discuss about the tear glands. Now tear glands are also called the lacrimal glands. Now these are mainly, you can see the pointer, red pointer here in this diagram. Here this located in the upper eyelid, sideward portion of the eyelid is the lacrimal gland. Now each lacrimal gland gives rise to mainly 6 to 12 excretory lacrimal ducts. Now these are all lacrimal ducts. So they give rise to 6 to 12 approximately a lacrimal duct, and they empty their secretion onto the surface of the conjunctiva. This is conjunctiva, so they are all emptying their secretion on the surface of the conjunctiva. Then it passes to these canals, through these canals, and then into the lacrimal duct. Now right side of the pointer you see the lacrimal duct, and this two at the corner of the eye, these are inferior lacrimal canal. Here you can see, and this is the superior lacrimal canal. So they are pouring all their liquid into this lacrimal duct. Now this lacrimal duct goes and joins into the nasolacrimal duct down, which conducts the secretion to the nasal cavity. Now tear or lacrimal secretion is always a watery fluid which contains an enzyme called lysozyme, which is having a bactericidal property. It also contains salt as well as mucus, and it is having that enzyme, which is very important actually. You should know the enzyme lysozyme present in eye has a bactericidal property, or it is a bactericidal enzyme. This is a very common question you get, that what type of enzyme is present in tears or lacrimal secretion. So that is lysozyme. Now let us see in the next slide what we are going to discuss. Now here we should highlight the functions of tears. Now here we can see when tears are being secreted through the lacrimal duct, it spreads all over the eyes and serves as a lubricant. It washes away, now as the tears are flowing like this, we can see it washes away the dust particles, it moistens the eyeball, and the enzyme lysozyme it contained, and it is killing these tears are killing the germs, and it is protecting our eyes from several infections, bacterial infections. Okay, so these are all main 4 important functions of tears: acting as a lubricant, washing away of the dust particles, moistening the eyeball, and the enzyme lysozyme, which is containing some bactericidal property which kills the germs. Now let us see what is in the next slide. Now in this slide we will discuss about the conjunctiva. So what is it? In the last slide we have told already that the tear glands are secreting tears onto the conjunctiva, which is acting as a lubricant. So we should know what is conjunctiva. So let us discuss what is conjunctiva. Now here look at the red pointer and see here in this diagram of eye, here you can see a thin membrane which covers the entire front part of the eyeball. You can see the red pointer over here. See, at the end of this there is a lacrimal gland. So this lacrimal gland in the last slide we have discussed are secreting tears. So here, from here you can just see the conjunctiva is a thin layer which is covering the entire eyeball and which lines inside the eyeballs. Now it is actually a double layered membrane, but is reduced to a single layer of transparent epithelium over the cornea. See, this is the cornea, And over the cornea, this conjunctiva becomes a single layer epithelium, transparent epithelium. Now this is conjunctiva. Now we are very much known to a term conjunctivitis. What is it? Now here you see in this eye, the white portion has become reddish in color. So might be it is being exposed to several pollutants or any kind of infections or allergic reactions. Sometimes this conjunctiva turns red due to viral infection also. So this is called conjunctivitis. Now any infection or allergic reaction causes this conjunctiva red. So this is called conjunctivitis. Okay, is it clear with everyone? And I have told you that if you are not getting anything clear, please do write in my comment box so that I can answer to your queries. Now in the next slide, what we are having, we will study about the structure of eyeball. Here see the diagram. This is our eyeball. Now the eyeball is mainly, it is a spherical structure and it is measuring approximately 2.5 centimeter in diameter, and structurally the eyeball is composed of mainly 3 layers. Okay, the sclerotic layer or the sclera is the outermost layer. Next comes the choroid layer and next comes the retina. And here we can see the lens. So these are the main parts of the eyeball. So we will go in details in the next slides. Now in this slide we will be discussing about the sclerotic layer or the sclera. Now first let us see the sclera or the sclerotic layer is the outer rough coat which is made of collagen fibers. Now it is a white coat of dense fibrous tissues which covers all eyeball except the cornea region. Now this sclerotic layer is divided into 2 parts. Mainly the posterior part is called the sclera and the anterior part is called the cornea. So this part is the cornea and the posterior part is the sclera. Now as it is a tough layer, it gives the shape to the eyeball and protects its inner parts. It is mainly white in color and this cornea is a fibrous coat through which the iris can be seen. Now here inside the cornea you can see the iris. This is the iris. So the iris can be seen through the cornea. So we can see a brownish color or bluish color inside our cornea, which is the iris. So outside the cornea we can see a epithelial layer of conjunctiva, which is actually the thin layer of epithelial tissue which is called the conjunctiva. It receives its nourishment from tears and aqueous humor. Now in this slide we will be discussing about the choroid layer or the middle layer of the eyeball. Now the middle layer consists of the choroid, the ciliary body and the iris. Now what is the choroid? The choroid is a thin dark brown membrane which lines, you see the innermost layer, inner surface of the sclera is being lined by this thin brown membrane. Now it contains many blood cells and it is also containing a large number of pigments. Now we know there are several pigments in this eye which are like they absorb the color, they absorb the light, like rhodopsin and iodopsin pigments are there in rods and cones. So this mainly pigments are present in this choroid region. Choroid absorb the light rays also and they are not reflected back to the eyeball. There are numerous blood vessels in this thin choroid layer which gives nourishment to the retina. Now here you can see the iris. So the iris is the colored part of the choroid around the pupil and it is colored part you can see through the cornea. We can see the iris of a person, either it's blue in color or it's brown in color. Now there is a hole like window like thing, round window at the center of the iris. Look at my pointer. This central window or hole is called the pupil. So the light enters the eyeball directly through the pupil and the iris contains the radial and circular muscles. Now here in these 2 corners we can see the ciliary body. Now this contraction of the muscles constricts the pupil which regulates the amount of light entering the eyeball. So this in details how this contraction and relaxation of the muscle occurs, that we will learn in the next slides. Now in this slide we will see the effect of light intensity on the size of pupil. Now very minutely see this diagram. Now this is the normal size of the pupil in normal light. Now when it is being exposed to bright light, what will happen? The pupil shrinks. The size of the pupil reduces as the circular muscles of the iris contract. And here you see it is exposed to dim light. Now the pupil opens wide and the radial muscles of the iris contract. So there are both circular muscles and radial muscles. Now when we are exposed to bright light, the circular muscles contract. And when we are exposed to dim light, here you see the radial muscles contract, and so the pupil becomes enlarged. And the pupil, we will see the size of the pupil has become too large. Now here also in this two diagram also you can see inside the eye, here we have only taken that pupil and iris part. Here we have taken the full eye structure. So here in bright light, the iris relaxes in bright light and the pupil constrict. And here the iris constricts and the pupil will dilate. So this is the effect of light intensity on the size of the pupil. Now in this slide we will discuss about the third inner layer of the eye. So that is the retina. So the first layer was the sclerotic layer or the sclera. The second layer was the choroid layer, and now comes the third layer, the retina. Now it is mainly located at the posterior part of the eye, and it is mainly the light sensitive area or the light sensitive layer. It contains cells like rods and cones. The rod cells are sensitive to dim light and they do not respond to color. So we should be very specific. The cones and the rods are the two cells which are present in the retina. The rods are sensitive to dim light and they do not respond to color. And rods only contain the pigment called rhodopsin. Now here you can see the pointer over here. The pigment named rhodopsin is present in the rods. And the cones are sensitive always to bright light. So these are working in contrast. Rods are sensitive to dim light and cones are sensitive to bright light. And cones are always responsible for color vision. Whereas the pigment present in the cones are iodopsin. Cone cells are confined mostly to the yellow spot or fovea centralis or macula. So this is the fovea centralis or macular region of the retina. Now cone cells are mostly confined to this region, to this yellow spot or fovea centralis or macula of the eye. So next, the last part we should discuss about the lens. Now in the next slide we will discuss about lens. Now in the last slide we will discuss about the lens. Now lens, what is it? It is a biconvex and transparent crystalline body. Now here we can see this biconvex crystalline transparent body. Now it lies just behind the pupil and the iris. See, the iris is here. Just behind the pupil we will see this lens. Now it is flatter at the front and at the back, and it is slightly soft and yellow in color. So this is mainly the nature of the lens. Now we can see we will get different types of artificial lenses also, which can change our eye normal color of our eye lens. So that is artificial one, but normally the natural one is slightly yellowish in color. It contains the transparent lens fibers and elastic lens capsule, which is mainly made up of glycoprotein. Now we can see both sides there are some suspensory ligaments which are holding the lens in correct position. If nothing is holding it, so how can the lens stand in between this? So there are suspensory ligaments which attach to the ciliary body. Okay, these are holding the lens in position. Now the eyeball is divided into two main cavities. Now this is the anterior cavity and this is the posterior cavity. Now the anterior cavity, that is between the lens and the cornea, they contain the fluid called aqueous humor, and the posterior cavity contains the liquid called the vitreous humor. So this is aqueous humor. Here we will see the fluid which is called aqueous humor, and here is the fluid which is called vitreous humor. So aqueous humor and vitreous humors are the two watery fluid which are present in eye. Now these two, what they do, they actually keep the lens moist and protects us from any type of physical shock. Now this vitreous humor, it is also a large cavity. It lies between the lens and the retina. It contains a jelly-like substance called the vitreous humor. And the vitreous humor prevents the eyeball from collapsing and it supports the retina. So this is a fluid which is filling this full compartment between the lens and the retina, and it helps to prevent the eyeball from collapsing. Now this is all mainly about the structure and function of different parts of the eye and its accessory structures. Now I feel that if you go through each and every part, every slide carefully, you will be very much thorough with this sense organ eye. This is only the first part. Now in the next videos, we will be discussing about the working of the eye and the different types of problems which are related to the lens, or we will say that the different types of deformities of the eye. So this is how we conclude this lesson. Thank you.